Methane. It's a word you're hearing a lot these days, right? And for good reason. It's become a huge part of the climate conversation. But with all the noise, what's really going on? Well, in this explainer, we're going to cut through all that and get to the heart of the matter. We're going to look at the global race to cut this super potent greenhouse gas. So, let's dive in.
And to do that, we're going straight to the source. Everything we're talking about today is pulled from the brand new Global Methane Status Report. Yeah, this is the big one, put together by the UN Environment Program and the Climate and Clean Air Coalition. So you know we're getting the real data, the official goals, and a clear-eyed look at the massive challenges ahead.
Okay, so let's just get right to it. The big question. In this fight against methane, are we actually winning? Or are we falling behind? Well, this report gives us a really clear and, honestly, a pretty sobering answer.
And that answer, well, it all starts with the hard numbers. So let's take a look at the data and see exactly where we're at.
All right, so here's our starting line. Back in 2020, the world was putting out 352 million tons of methane. Now you're going to want to remember that number because it's the baseline for everything else we're about to talk about.
And here's where the story takes a pretty sharp turn. You'd think the goal would be to bring that number down, right? Well, based on the policies we have in place right now, it's not going down. Nope, it's actually projected to go up to 369 million tons by 2030.
And when you see it like this, the problem becomes crystal clear. We're not just stalling out, we are literally heading in the wrong direction. That upward slope you see there? That, right there, is the core challenge this whole report is built around.
And look, this isn't just some abstract number on a chart. This trend, this is what directly threatens our ability to keep global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And you know how critical that number is for avoiding the absolute worst impacts of climate change. So to put it simply, the stakes here, they couldn't be higher.
Okay, but it's not all bad news. There is a plan, or at least the beginning of one. And that brings us to the Global Methane Pledge. This is basically the world's main game plan for tackling this growing problem.
So what is it exactly? Well, at its heart, the Global Methane Pledge is basically a big voluntary team effort. It was kicked off by the EU and the US, and the idea was pretty simple. Let's get as many countries as possible on the same page, all working towards one single unified goal.
It all got started back at the COP26 Climate Summit. And since then, it's really grown. We're talking over 159 countries, plus the European Commission, have all signed on. And their shared promise? It's simple, but it's also really ambitious. Slash global methane emissions by at least 30% by the year 2030. And remember that 2020 number we talked about? That's their starting line.
A 30% cut. So that's the ambition. But as this report makes, well, painfully clear, the reality on the ground? It's telling a very different story.
And this right here really lays out the disconnect perfectly. On one side, you've got the goal, a big, sharp 30% cut in emissions. But on the other side, you've got the reality. Emissions are actually projected to rise. This huge chasm between the two, that's what the report calls the implementation gap. And listen, this isn't just my interpretation. The report itself puts it bluntly. I'm quoting here, "Global action is not progressing fast enough to meet 2030 methane reduction goals." That's a really stark warning. It's saying the pledge is flat out at risk of failing simply because the action just isn't keeping up with the ambition. If you need one single jaw-dropping statistic to really understand this implementation gap, this is it. We're getting better and better at finding methane leaks from all sorts of infrastructure. We're detecting them at record levels. And yet, a staggering 90%, 90, of those leaks that we find just remain unaddressed. It's just a massive, massive missed opportunity.
Okay, so I know this all sounds pretty bleak, and it is, but the report doesn't just drop all this bad news and walk away. It also points to a huge window of opportunity. It shows a clear path forward if we actually choose to take it.
So that leads to the obvious question, right? Where do we even start? If we're behind and we need to make up for lost time, where can we get the biggest bang for our buck? Where's the fastest impact to be made?
Well, the report points to one area above all the rest. And it boils the entire opportunity down to a single, really powerful number, 72%.
That's right, over 72% of all the potential we have to cut methane is hiding in just one place, the energy sector. We're talking about tackling leaks from oil and gas infrastructure, things like that. It is a hugely concentrated opportunity. It's like a giant flashing signpost. telling the entire world exactly where to focus first.
So, let's just quickly recap the main takeaways from this whole report. First, the big problem: emissions are going up, not down. Second, the risk: the global methane pledge, our big plan, is in serious jeopardy. Third, the huge opportunity: the energy sector holds the key to a massive turnaround. And finally, most obvious first step, we got to start addressing the thousands upon thousands of methane leaks that we already know about. And you know, when you boil it all down, the report leaves us with this one powerful final thought. The data is crystal clear, the problem is perfectly defined, and the single most effective solution is sitting right there, right in front of us. It's like the science has handed us a map. So the only real question left is about will. Are the world's leaders in politics and industry going to actually choose to walk the path that's been so clearly laid out for them? That is the question this report leaves us with.